Amazing revelation. Millionaire's unexpected act transforms crying daughters and touches everyone. Jack Thompson sat alone in the dimly lit living room of his childhood home. Papers sprawled across the coffee table like the remnants of a battlefield, scattered remnants of a life built from grit and determination. At 50, he was a self-made millionaire, a title that brought only hollow pride. The weight of a terminal diagnosis settled in his chest, the dark reality looming like a shadow. Strangled memories of his daughters, Emily and Sarah, echoed through the silence. Their faces, etched with disappointment during their last unseen visit, haunted him. He had built his empire on a foundation of hardship, insistent that resilience stemmed from self-reliance. But at what cost? As days ticked by, he found himself torn between solitary pride and a desperate need to make amends. Would their disdain turn to pity in the face of impending death? The thought gnawed at his insides. He had always believed that strength was paramount, that softness signified failure. Now, with his health deteriorating, shifting from a man of strength to a broken carcass of regret felt like the ultimate defeat. The door creaked open, and Emily and Sarah stepped inside, hesitance etched in their brows. Their reluctance was palpable as they exchanged brief glances, hearts weighed down by years of resentment. Jack's pulse quickened. He needed to unveil his plans, but doubts clawed at him. Would they even care? Did their childhood scars run too deep for an olive branch to bridge the chasm of their estrangement? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a shaky breath, Jack finally began sorting through the papers, revealing plans for community assistance he'd kept under wraps. Each document felt like an unraveling knot of mistrust and disbelief. A single mother's plea, of veteran struggles, and a hopeful child's dreams flashed before their eyes. Shock coursed through Emily. Had her father, the embodiment of tough love, finally cracked open? Or was this yet another scheme to clear his conscience, driven by looming death? Tension crackled in the air as they sifted through the files, conflicting emotions spiraling within Jack. Pride battled shame, longing wrestled with fear. Another unkind thought surfaced: maybe Emily and Sarah would prefer his legacy to burn down in a frenzy of materialism, untouched by genuine affection. But each vulnerable story shared ignited an unfamiliar fire within them. The sisters began to feel the weight of their own neglected dreams. How many missed opportunities had they sacrificed in the name of their father's ambitions? As Jack reflected on his own childhood, revealing glimpses of vulnerability, Emily's heart thudded. They had locked away their shared love for music, silenced by his relentless demands for success. Just as the air filled with faint melodies of the past, a sense of unity began to blossom. Yet a churning dread gripped Sarah. Could they forgive him? Would tiny notes of guitar strings bridge the years of isolation? An unexpected twist pulled at their heartstrings as they discovered a connection between a family they were helping and Jack's forgotten past. Each revelation deepened the emotional mire, planting a seed of hope, yet shrouded in uncertainty. The sisters stood at the precipice, caught between the legacy of a broken father and their own unfulfilled dreams, each moment heavy with unspoken truths, anxiously awaiting the transformation that remained just out of reach. In the silence that enveloped the room, Jack's heart raced. The delicate thread of conversation spun taut, and he realized the gravity of the moment. He had opened a door to emotions long suppressed, yet uncertainty still clouded their gathering. Emily and Sarah seemed to hover on the edge of a precipice, poised to either hurl themselves into reconciliation or retreat back to resentment. Jack cleared his throat, the weight of unacknowledged pain lingering like a ghost in the corners. "You both deserve to know," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "These projects, they mean something to me beyond just charity. They're my attempts to become someone worthy of your respect. I thought that if I could fix the world, maybe I could fix myself along the way." He watched their expressions shift, a potent mix of skepticism and intrigue painting their features. Emily's brow furrowed, and the words spilled from her like a torrent. Dad, it's not enough to just throw money at problems. You know that. Money can't erase years of absence. Her voice cracked, revealing the deep-seated fury of betrayal mingled with fear. Those projects, did you ever think about what they could have meant if you'd included us? Sarah chimed in, her voice steadier. About how we could help transform those lives together. Instead, you shut us out. Jack felt the sting of their accusations. Their sharp words cut through the haze of his justifications. It was true. Each charity form was a reminder of a long-lost bond. They had all assumed roles, he as the provider, they as the forgotten. Regret pooled in his chest, suffocating the pride he had clung to for so long. Yet beneath the rising tide of despair, he sensed something awakening within him. He wasn't simply a man chasing success anymore. Here, in this moment, he was a father yearning for redemption. I see that now, he admitted, vulnerability lacing his tone. I wanted to protect you from my failures without realizing that my absence was the biggest failure of all. Their shared silence settled heavy, shadows dancing among the flickering light of their old family photographs. They were not just remnants of a life lived apart, but harbingers of forgiveness, stories waiting to be rewritten. Emily and Sarah studied their father anew, searching for traces of the man they once admired amidst the rubble of his convoluted legacy. I want to make a real change. Jack leaned forward, urgency punctuating his words. Not just in my life or yours, but in the lives affected by these projects. I need your help. We could build something together from the ground up, as a family. Emily crossed her arms defensively, wrestling with the temptation to shove his offer away like so many past grievances. Yet, a seed of curiosity began to sprout. Could they truly reshape their father's legacy? Could it still lead them to heal the wounds they'd all nurtured for far too long? As Sarah pondered his words, a flicker of determination ignited. If we do this, you'll have to be committed, truly committed. No backing out. We need transparency. We want to be just figures in the background. We want our voices heard. Jack nodded vigorously, straining to convey sincerity. I promise. This isn't just about fixing the past. It's about forging a new path. For all of us. Their hearts remained guarded, but the prospect of collaboration filled the room with flickers of hope. Still, an undercurrent of tension buzzed beneath the surface. How would they tackle the remnants of their fractured relationship as they ventured into this uncharted territory? Jack's heart raced with both excitement and trepidation. The time had come to face not only the challenges of rekindling a family bond, but to confront the reality of his own shortcomings as a father. And the urgency of those intertwined motives felt paramount. The three of them sat quietly. A soft melody spilled from another room, a song Emily had penned years ago, rich with untold stories and unexpressed emotions. Jack's heart twinged. What if music was their secret weapon in this evolving narrative? As her fingers danced across the keyboard, he knew the unbreakable connection between their past and a possible future beckoned. Was it their tune that would finally drown out the echoes of disappointment? Let us bring music back into this, Jack suggested, emboldened by the thought. Could it be part of our healing? Questions shimmered within the air as they eyed one another, excitement blending with apprehension. Flashes of their earlier selves entwined with visions of possibility, leaving a tantalizing uncertainty. Could they truly reclaim harmony from chaos? An electric shift was nearing, promising transformation, yet shadowed by doubt. The familial transformation awaited. Could they maneuver through the terrain of hurt and emerge victorious on the other side? They would have to confront not just their shared past, but the daunting challenge of redefined futures. The stakes were set, and the journey had only just begun. Jack couldn't shake the nervous energy thrumming through him as he sat in the dim light of his living room, facing Emily and Sarah. They had taken tentative steps towards reconciliation, but the path ahead still loomed hazy and uncertain. He needed to channel the resolve he felt into tangible actions, not just words. Music, he reiterated, trying to infuse his tone with an infectious excitement, is a universal language. If we share our stories through it, maybe we can bridge the gaps between us. The words hung in the air, a challenge and an invitation, waiting for their response. Emily shifted in her seat, her expression wavering between skepticism and a reluctant interest. So what does that mean? Just singing some songs together? Is there even a point in that? Jack could feel the impulse to retreat, to dismiss the idea as naive, but he fought against it. It's more than just singing. Think about the memories behind those songs. This is how we reconnect. It's about finding a medium to express feelings we've often kept bottled up inside. We can use this as a starting point to create something that reflects all our experiences together. There was a moment, brief yet potent, when their childhood laughter mingled with the weight of shared regrets. He saw it flicker in their eyes, a connection just beneath the surface. Sarah nodded slowly. Okay, but if we do this, we can't be afraid to be real with each other. Not just during the fun parts. We need to face the painful truths, too. Agreed, Jack said, surprised by a sense of unity that had been absent for far too long. They hadn't engaged like this in years, and the realization ignited a new flame within him. As they discussed a plan to hold regular sessions where they could write and create music together, Jack felt his purpose crystallizing. However, he couldn't ignore the growing shadows of his past brushing against their newfound potential. Was one artful musical endeavor enough to patch years of emotional neglect? Could he truly be the father they deserved? Or was he still just a man clinging to regrets for a life he had failed to give them? As days passed, and they began their project, Jack noticed the shifts within himself. Collaborating with Emily and Sarah, the creative process opened a gateway to vulnerability. Each meeting was a dance of emotions, laughter, and tears intertwined as they shared memories and influences that a couple of weeks in. While dissecting a particularly emotional song Emily had written, Jack felt compelled to delve deeper. That lyric about feeling invisible, what made you feel that way? Silence sank into the room, thick with tension as the question lingered. Emily's eyes glistened with unshed tears. You were never there when I needed you. And it made me feel like I didn't matter, she said, her voice cutting like glass. He braced for the strike, words wrapping around his heart in a vice grip. But instead of recoiling, he leaned in. I understand, and I'm sorry for contributing to that feeling. I want to do better, to be present this time. They talked long into the night, peeling layers off long-held pains while stitching new connections. Yet, as they embraced this transformative journey, whispers of old doubts crept back in. Would this new commitment last? Could he be vulnerable enough to lead them into healing? Then one evening, during a session, as Sarah strummed her guitar, the echoes of their laughter intertwined with notes that filled the room sweetly. It felt like the winds of change were sweeping through a beat that could soften years of resistance. They were slowly creating something beautiful together, but just as they began to strike the right chords, an unexpected text lit up Jack's phone. The sender's name sent a shiver down his spine, his business partner, hinting at a brewing scandal that could threaten everything he had rebuilt so painstakingly. The stark reality of his dual existence crashed back, reminding him of the fragility of their transformed relationship. Anxiety squeezed his chest as he glanced up from the screen, seeing Emily and Sarah, bathed in the light of creativity. Could the music hold if his world outside threatened to spiral anew? With this pivotal moment at hand, ambiguous reflections stirred as they faced a daunting challenge together. Would they emerge stronger or fall victim to the chaos lurking just out of sight? The stakes had never felt higher. The night air was charged with unvoiced confessions, but in the wake of that jarring text, Jack's mind spiraled into a torrent of uncertainty. The momentary joy of their musical journey felt overshadowed by daunting realities. He glanced at Emily and Sarah, their laughter ringing like chimes, and each one echoed against the backdrop of the chaos he felt brewing just beyond their carefully constructed safe space. With an exhale, Jack decided to set the phone aside, at least for now. He mentally shelved his partner's cryptic message, committing to focus on the connection they had begun to rebuild. Let us take a break and share some of our favorite songs, he suggested, immediately regaining composure. Each song was a door to the past, a conduit for shared memories, and suddenly he wanted to be fully present in this moment. Fears dampened by intention, as Emily chose a track that had once united them years ago, something shifted. The music wafted through the air, inviting them into deeper waters of nostalgia, all while anchoring them in the present. Jack felt the walls around his heart falter under the warmth of their shared experience. In each note, stories unfolded, tender moments blended with harsh realities. But today they felt more hopeful than hurtful. Yet as they reminisced through lyrics, Jack could hear the echo of Emily's earlier words. She had voiced the truth of their long-absent bond. The weight of that conversation hung above him, a reminder that he couldn't ignore the truths that had propelled them into this fraught but sincere reunion. During a lull in the music, he nudged the conversation toward a deeper understanding. "What about your favorite song resonates with you now?" Jack asked, willing to peel back more layers. His own curiosity tantalized him, but even more, it was his desire to be the guiding figure they deserved, to embody the father they had never fully known. "Honestly, it reminds me that despite the distance to you, there's still love," Emily admitted, her voice imbued with vulnerability. The swathe of emotion in the room thickened, almost tangible, as Sarah chimed in. "Music holds us together, doesn't it? It's why we're doing this." As warmth filled the room, Jack felt another layer of himself being revealed, like petals unfurling in spring, as opportunities for authenticity blossomed. They needed to challenge those long-standing misunderstandings and together refine their present. Months of avoidance and regret began to dissipate with every collaboration. Yet there lurked the shadow of his business troubles, always present, lurking, as if their new commitment could face a jeopardizing wind at any moment. How long could he juggle these two worlds without the risk of crashing? The thought gnawed at him, demanding a response he wasn't yet prepared to give. Just as he pondered the weight of his dual reality, his phone buzzed again, pulling him back to the harsh silhouettes of his business life. He opened the message, heart racing. The details were clearer, now a meeting set for tomorrow, an ultimatum, a chance to confront the demons that threatened his professional identity. Jack's throat tightened as he caught sight of Emily and Sarah, blissfully unaware, entwined in their melodies. Would he have to sacrifice this newfound connection to honor the chaos outside? Steeling himself against that fear, he returned to the present, striving to weave the joy of their musical endeavor with the reality he couldn't ignore. He needed to act, but which path would he choose, one that prioritized his family or one that upheld the commitments made to a troubled partnership? With turmoil surging within him, he could almost hear their music fading into the background. The next day would reveal everything. But tonight he fought to keep his focus, determined to embrace creativity and love over fear and regret. Just as he finally settled his gaze on his daughters, a last thought struck him, one that might change the course of his destiny. He needed to face the duality of his life head-on. And with that, the melody shifted, leaving them at the precipice of a new reality. How could he articulate the fragility of their new connection while preparing to confront the storm brewing just outside their sanctuary? The next step would not only define his future, but perhaps also their reconciled past. The time to face that reckoning was drawing near. As dawn broke, the blurry outlines of Jack's responsibilities loomed over him like storm clouds. The meeting felt imminent, a countdown echoing in his mind. Sleep had been elusive. Each tick of the clock had pulled him deeper into introspection. The uncertainty of his professional identity hung heavily in the air, yet amidst the crumbling anxiety, he recognized that he had something solid to grasp: the means to foster the connection with Emily and Sarah. The morning was filled with muted colors and thick shadows, mirroring the emotions churning inside him. Jack moved purposefully around the kitchen, preparing breakfast, mentally orchestrating his day. Everything felt weighted. The eggs crackled in the pan while a symphony of choices echoed in his head. He had just started to feel like a father again, yet the encroaching meeting threatened to pull him away again, back into the relentless void of his business troubles. "Yes," Sarah mumbled through her breakfast. She suddenly looked up with bright eyes. "Dad, can we practice our song today? You know, that one you said we could redo together?" Her enthusiasm felt like a beacon, pulling him back to the warmth of their shared moments. "Of course, we will," Jack replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his heart. He reminded himself that every moment spent nurturing their bond could fortify him against the turbulent winds of his professional life. Today, he would focus on being present. He could confront his demons later. While they practiced, Jack recalled the urgency of earlier conversations about discipline and compromise, about dreams unrealized against tidal waves of responsibility. With each strum of the guitar, the music crafted a narrative far more profound than mere notes and vibrations. They were weaving hope. They were stitching back together the frayed edges of their family tapestry. But an echo of guilt dogged him, tinged with the question of whether he was truly equipped to carry this weight. Could he continue to mold their creative bond while navigating the treachery of his business landscape? Each note resonated with an introspection that clashed against his escalating anxiety, but he found himself immersed, momentarily losing himself in the music. After a few hours, he had cultivated a sense of joy and purpose that felt weighty yet liberating. Realizing they had forged a brilliant version of their song, Jack felt an unfamiliar surge of pride, something he hadn't allowed himself to unleash in a long time. But as they settled into one final note, he glanced at the clock. Time was slipping away. He needed to prepare for the meeting. Dread settled in his stomach as he picked up his phone, the decision now a palpable pressure. Each word in his partner's earlier message resurfaced, dictating terms he wasn't sure he could meet. He hesitated, his fingers hovering over the screen, caught in a paradox. Was he really ready to recalibrate his priorities? Dad. Emily's voice cut through his turbulence. She stood at the door, her expression a mixture of support and concern. That he sighed, placing the phone down. Yeah? What are you thinking about? She pressed gently. It was a simple question, but it held an intensity that challenged him to confront the gray areas of his life, his hesitations, his sacrifices. Jack looked into her eyes, searching for strength. Today is a big day for work. I just need to figure a few things out, he admitted, surprised at the honesty that spilled out unguarded. Just remember, you don't have to do it alone, Emily said, each syllable resonating within him like a promise. The simplicity of her words struck him with a newfound clarity, reshaping his perspective. They both stood at a crossroads, their vulnerabilities now laid bare. As he refocused on her, he realized their bond reinforced his capability to face the chaos ahead. Just before he left, Jack turned back to his guitar, fingers brushing over the strings one last time. Perhaps, he thought, the intersection of his personal and professional life didn't necessitate a sacrifice. Instead, there was potential for harmony if he harnessed it wisely. Trust the song, Dad. It knows our journey, Sarah chimed in, unaware of how much her innocent words mirrored his growing resolve. The door clicked shut behind him. The air shimmered with potential. With each step toward the meeting, he could feel the tremors of uncertainty still lingering, but an ember of determination sparked inside him. He would walk in ready to confront, ready to advocate for what he cherished most. But what awaited him in that meeting was unknown, a looming possibility ready to unveil itself. As Jack prepared to step into the fray, would the revelation he faced transform everything? Would he emerge victorious, or would he find himself facing insurmountable odds once again? Each moment drew him closer to an answer, and a gnawing excitement tinged with fear consumed him as he crossed the threshold. The time for change was upon him, whether he was ready or not. As Jack stepped into the conference room, the tension pressed against him like a dense fog. The long table, slick and intimidating, set the stage for a duel of wills disguised as a business meeting. Around him, colleagues prepared for the showdown, laptops open, coffee steaming, expressions serious. Yet in the midst of their practiced professionalism, Jack felt like a ship adrift, navigating uncertain waters with no clear destination. His eyes gravitated toward the window, where the world beyond bustled in contrast to the stillness inside the room. Traffic moved in complex patterns, people pursuing their daily objectives. He thought about Sarah and Emily, their laughter echoing in his mind, the warmth of their shared moments contrasting sharply with the cold reality awaiting him. Focus on the song, he reminded himself. Digging deep, he searched for the determination stirred by their earlier conversations. As the meeting began, Jack found himself enveloped in the familiar cadence of corporate chatter. But as pie charts and projections flickered to life on the screen, his mind wrestled with the figures, the rising stress of impending decisions clawing at his composure. His partner, Susan, took the lead, laying out dire forecasts with an unwavering certainty that left no room for deviation. We must implement immediate cuts, she asserted. The margins are unbearable, and we cannot afford to be lenient. Each word felt like a tightening noose around Jack's resolve. He could sense the silent pressure pressing down on his shoulders, threatening to obliterate the personal victories he had just begun to reclaim. The stakes were high. Choices would affect not only the company but the futures of countless families, including his own. Yet, the notion of sacrificing his ethics for profit echoed in his mind, a thorny dilemma that pierced the surface of his conscience. That he glanced around the room, gauging reactions. A few others held the same uneasy reservations, but the majority seemed to accept the impending decisions as necessary. A simmering conflict began to churn inside him. Was this the kind of leader he wanted to be? An enforcer of cold logic or a defender of values that extended beyond mere numbers? The urge to speak surged within him as Susan called for opinions. "Wait," he interrupted, his voice steady yet uncertain. "Can we explore other avenues? What about investing in innovation instead of cutting jobs?" The proposal tumbled out before he could second-guess it. The room fell silent, all eyes trained on Jack, who felt the raw electric charge of vulnerability. "Jack, we need a quick solution here, not a diversion," Susan shot back, eyebrows raised in disbelief. Yet Jack pressed on, bolstered by the memory of his daughter's reassuring words. "I know it might seem more complicated, but I believe in what we can create rather than what we tear down. We owe it to our employees and ourselves to strive for a pathway that could actually uplift our team rather than diminish it." The shift in the room was palpable, whispers breaking out between colleagues. For a moment, it felt as if the very air thickened with possibility, the collective uncertainty mirrored in the gravity of his convictions. But the challenge remained daunting. Would he find allies in this sea of convention? As the discussion evolved, doubts crept in, accompanied by fervent self-questioning. What if he failed? What if they ridiculed him, dismissing his vision as naive? Still, the image of Emily and Sarah anchored him, nurturing that ember of determination into brilliance. The meeting dragged on, oscillating between dismissive remarks and hopeful exchanges. Jack created a strategic approach, articulating the potential benefits woven into innovation. Even if they deemed it too ambitious, he felt a growing resolve to remain a voice for compassion amidst chaos. When the meeting finally adjourned, he absorbed the weight of lingering doubt juxtaposed with a flicker of hope. One trodden path had veered unexpectedly into another dimension. As Jack stepped out into the sunlight, he felt lighter, the air brisk against his skin. He had dared to advocate for not just numbers, but lives, exactly the kind of change he wanted. But the outcome, uncertain as it was, loomed ahead like a great uncharted expanse. Would his bold stance make wave after wave ripple through the company? Would convening emotions and resources inspire his colleagues? Or would they descend back into the monocracy of conventionality? As Jack made his way home, he braced himself, ready for whatever awaited. The journey was just beginning. Jack's resolve surged as he entered the house, the familiar sounds of his daughters playing in the living room momentarily drowning out the cacophony of self-doubt. The lively chaos of their laughter was a welcome distraction, pulsating with life in stark contrast to the sterile atmosphere of the conference room. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, allowing their joy to wash over him. But as he stepped further inside, reality crept back in. The day's events echoed sharply in his mind. Could he really shift the culture of a company entrenched in financial stubbornness? The thought hung heavy in the air, and he felt the urge to retreat. Instead, he took a deep breath and sought out Sarah and Emily. Perhaps their innocent perspective could further ground him. "Dad," Emily exclaimed, "come play with us." She held up a brightly colored puzzle, her eyes wide with eagerness. Jack smiled, an involuntary response that shattered the tension he had carried home. "Sure, let us do this," he replied, joining them on the floor. As the pieces clicked together, he couldn't help but reflect on how intricate the challenge at work felt compared to the simplicity of his daughter's game. Each piece fit, each color vibrant against the others, a small reminder that cohesion was possible. Minutes turned into hours as they built towers and decorated an imaginary kingdom. With every whimsical story they concocted, Jack felt layers of doubt peel away, revealing a growing conviction. Maybe embracing innovation meant finding new perspectives not just at work, but in life as well. Yet reality was unyielding, and as the night wore on, His mind drifted back to the meeting. How could he convince his colleagues to see beyond their spreadsheets? What was the root cause of this rigid mentality that stifled creativity? The faces of his peers replaced the jovial memories of puzzle pieces. He wondered what they valued more: preservation of the status quo or an opportunity to thrive. That night, the candle flickered dimly in the living room as Jack sat in the stillness after the girls had gone to bed. He opened his laptop to scour for examples of companies that successfully navigated crises through innovation rather than cuts. As articles flooded his screen, he experienced a rush of inspiration. It became clear that real change required calculated risks, a blend of creativity and commerce. Then a series of ideas formed, intuitive connections sparking like fireworks in his mind. He began drafting a proposal to present his vision again, this time with tangible examples and a structured plan that demonstrated possibility rather than mere conjecture. He envisioned a world where teamwork flourished, nourished by mutual respect and encouragement. His phone chimed unexpectedly, breaking the silence. A message from Susan appeared. "Can we discuss what you suggested in the meeting today? I might need your perspective again." A pulse of adrenaline shot through him. This was uncharted territory, a chance to continue his earlier conversation, to engage with Susan in a way that could build bridges instead of walls. Jack realized the moment of truth was approaching. Would she respond with openness, or would he face the cold resistance he braced for? As he gathered his thoughts for a response, a realization emerged. This wasn't solely about the company, it was about the kind of leader he aspired to be. Would he foster an environment of transparency and courage, or would he capitulate to fear and conformity? He typed back, his fingers trembling with anticipation and determination. "Absolutely. I have some ideas to share that I think could really resonate with the team." With a click, he sent the message and sat back in his chair, heart racing. The shroud of uncertainty hung thick once more, but threaded through it was the exhilarating realization of his own potential. This could be the start of a vital transformation, not just for the company, but for Jack himself. In the quiet that followed, his resolve solidified. Tomorrow would be pivotal, a chance to take his newfound insight and cultivate a movement among his colleagues. But behind that excitement lay a shadow of apprehension. Would they rally behind him or push back harder than before? As he prepared for bed, sleep eluded him. The stakes felt monumental, and he pondered the dangerous path before him. What if his next steps jeopardized everything he had fought for? With those swirling thoughts, the uncertainty layered over anticipation thickened, igniting an unquenchable curiosity about the outcomes ahead. Would Jack find the camaraderie he desperately sought or face the daunting challenge of isolation? Tomorrow promised more than a meeting, it promised a confrontation with his own emerging leadership. The dawn broke, a veil of gold stretching across the horizon, but Jack felt only shadows lurking in his mind. He had spent the night wrestling with uncertainty, contemplating every conceivable reaction from his colleagues. Would they embrace his ideas or cling to their traditional viewpoints, branding him as an outsider? In the shower, the water pelted down like the weight of expectation on his shoulders. Every drop reminded him of the walls he needed to break down. He knew that a shift in culture wouldn't happen in isolation. It demanded collaboration, empathy, and trust, the very elements that had been missing in their team dynamics. "Just be yourself," he whispered to his reflection, though his heart raced with conflicting emotions. He couldn't shake off the feeling that what lay ahead would require far more than mere presentation skills. It would demand authenticity, a willingness to be vulnerable, and the courage to expose his doubts. This wasn't just another meeting, it was a beacon of opportunity to redefine his role as a leader. Arriving at the office, Jack took a moment in the parking lot to breathe deeply. The familiar facade loomed before him, a reminder of both his ambitions and the entrenched attitudes within. As he stepped inside, the sounds of ringing phones and hurried footsteps felt suffocating, yet he pushed through, driven by an unquenchable need to challenge the status quo. His heart raced as he approached the conference room. Thoughts tumbled through his mind like scrabbling dice. Each one risked disapproval, backlash, or worse, indifference. Could he truly turn the tide of complacency? Or was he setting himself up for failure? Susan was already seated at the table, reviewing documents with an intensity that made Jack's pulse quicken. She looked up as he entered, her expression unreadable. Did she want to instill hope, or was she primed to amplify the resistance he feared? "Hey, Jack," she said, her tone steady. "Thanks for coming. Let us see what you've got." He nodded, taking a deep breath to steady the quaking butterflies in his stomach. "I've been thinking a lot about our previous discussion. I want to propose a new approach." As soon as he began speaking, the words poured out, previous hesitations muted by urgency. He detailed specific examples of companies that had chosen innovation over cuts, weaving in personal anecdotes about team dynamics and collaboration. He articulated a vision of their workplace transformed where every employee felt valued, and creativity was nurtured rather than stifled. Susan leaned in, her interest piqued. "That's an interesting perspective," she replied, her brow furrowing in thought. Jack watched for the flicker of doubt in her eyes, but found her focus unwavering. Did this mean she was genuinely considering his vision? Encouraged, he continued, "I believe we can cultivate a culture that rewards risk-taking and camaraderie. We need to engage every level of our organization, building trust from the ground up." At moments, he could sense other colleagues arriving, their curiosity piqued by the energy radiating from their discussion. One by one, the murmurs of skepticism began to transform into thoughtful dialogue. They posed questions and shared concerns, yet for the first time, Jack felt their walls crumbling. Yet even amidst their collaboration, a voice of doubt crept into his mind. What if they were merely complying, driven by a desire to placate him? Would their newfound enthusiasm last, or was it just a fleeting response? Suddenly, Susan interjected with a probing question. "What if your vision backfires? What if it leads to more chaos?" That was the moment Jack had dreaded. It was easy for him to envision success, but confronting potential failure required a different kind of courage. "Failure can be part of the learning process," he found himself saying, his voice steadying with conviction. "But if we don't take the risk to explore new ideas, we'll stagnate. I would rather navigate through chaos than remain in the comfort of routine." Jack's words hung in the air, charged with possibility. The silence that followed was thick with contemplation, every pair of eyes focused intently on him. As he surveyed the faces of his colleagues, he felt a shift within himself, a realization that he was not simply presenting a proposition, but engaging in a collective journey. And amidst that quiet tension, he grasped an essential thread, a call to action that extended beyond the meeting room. But was he prepared for the fallout of challenging norms? Would his vision sustain the impact that he so desperately sought? As their discussion unfolded, Jack sensed that each moment would test his resolve and redefine what it meant to lead in that transformative space of uncertainty. He felt the exhilaration of potential welling within him, punctuated by an inevitable question. What would happen when they left the confines of this conference room and faced the realities of their entrenched culture? As the conference room's silence began to dissipate, Jack could feel the palpable shift in energy. Conversations whirred around him, igniting a spark that he had once feared might drown in apathy. Colleagues exchanged ideas, riffing off each other's insights. And in that moment, Jack became acutely aware that the air felt different, charged with a collective eagerness for change. But within the gleaming surface of enthusiasm, a shadow of doubt still loomed over him. Could he truly lead this team into uncharted territory? He watched Susan, her expression shifting from skepticism to contemplation, and felt the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. His earlier conviction felt fragile, like a tenuous strand that could snap with a single misstep. "Jack, I really like what you're proposing," a voice broke through his thoughts. It was Mike, his closest ally on the team. "But we've got to make sure we have concrete steps in place before we dive in. How do we measure success?" A spotlight turned to him, as if they were all leaning in closer, waiting for the magic words that would turn the tide. Could he articulate a plan that embraced risk while providing a safety net? He had always approached challenges intuitively, rarely relying on strict metrics. But that wasn't going to cut it. Not now. "So, what I'm envisioning is a pilot project," Jack said slowly, gathering his thoughts. "We can start small, select one department to operate under this new framework for 3 months. We track engagement levels, team morale, and output metrics. From there, we can either expand this model or pivot based on what we learn." As he spoke, clarity seeped into his mind. Each word anchored him deeper into his own vision. This was not just about innovation. It was about fostering a culture that celebrated learning and adaptation. He felt a rush of confidence surge within him. He was beginning to see himself as both a leader and a learner. Great idea. Susan nodded, her tone now shifting from interrogation to collaboration. But I want to ensure it's a two-way street. Your proposal requires buy-in at every level. What strategies will we employ to engage those who might resist? In that moment, Jack recognized his next challenge. How could he reach those resistant to change, who clung tightly to the status quo? Would they meet his vulnerability with open hearts or fortified walls? The first step is transparency, Jack asserted, a newfound determination flooding his veins. We need to communicate why this change matters and how it benefits everyone in the long run. Town hall meetings, Q&A sessions, everything to demystify our intentions. He saw the gears turning in their minds, the walls sloughing off piece by piece. This was the authenticity he had hoped for. This was the foundation of trust. Jack was starting to feel a shift within himself to a blend of exhilaration and raw fear, yet both ignited a hunger to advocate for his vision. All right, what's the next step? A new voice chimed. It was Lisa, a skeptic known for cutting through pretenses. Jack swallowed hard, knowing her bluntness could cut him down or lift him higher. We schedule a follow-up meeting for next week, he proposed, and we collaborate on refining the initial strategy. I want everyone's input to shape this process so it truly feels like our collective endeavor. As the conversation progressed and ideas unfurled, Jack's earlier doubts began to morph into resolve. He recognized that he was not in this alone. The contributions of his colleagues were the essential bricks in the foundation he sought to build. Yet, the knowledge of potential backlash still loitered at the back of his mind, gnawing at him that as the meeting drew to a close. He felt a wave of anticipation bubbling within, but it came tethered with dread. Had they genuinely embraced the vision, or were they merely caught in the momentum of the moment? He left the conference room buoyed by camaraderie, but haunted by the question that loomed larger than any uncertainty they had just faced. Would he have the courage to confront the inevitable resistance, should it arise? Jack knew the reality of embracing such a dramatic shift demanded vigilance beyond passion, but a flicker of uncertainty ignited within him as whispers of doubt began to rise again. If the culture didn't shift in practice, what then? How would he navigate the complexities of their evolving dynamics, especially when pushback would likely come both externally and from within? Jack straightened his back, determined to transform that flickering doubt into a beacon of personal responsibility. The moment of truth lay ahead, and he realized that at the heart of true leadership would be his willingness to face those challenges head-on in the solitude of his thoughts. A sharp realization struck him. This could become a defining moment, an opportunity to evolve not just the workplace, but himself as a leader. How far he could go would depend on how well he prepared for the storms ahead. Each decision would be a challenge, pushing him deeper into the uncharted waters of leadership. What awaited him next? The reflections of this initial success were replaced quickly by the daunting weight of what he had yet to confront. The moment was coming when he would have to face the inevitable backlash. Would he be ready? Time passed like a breath of fresh air, yet Jack felt as if he were holding his breath in an invisible struggle. As he arrived home from the office, the events of the day lingered in his mind. Yet, unlike before, where doubt thrived in silence, a newfound confidence began to surface, fueled by the camaraderie he had fostered at work. Jack opened the door to a chaotic but melodic symphony of laughter and chatter as Emily and Sarah animatedly discussed their latest songwriting endeavor. Each note echoed the harmony he had yearned for, and in that moment, he understood that the transformation he sought within himself was intrinsically linked to the bonds he strengthened with his daughters. "Hey, girls," Jack announced, a genuine smile emerging. "What are we working on tonight?" Emily turned, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "We're putting together a song that captures our journey. It's our way of commemorating how we come together. Can I join?" he asked, words tumbling from his lips as urgency swelled within him. They didn't hesitate. As evening unfolded, the three of them gathered around the living room, a cacophony of colorful notes and heartfelt lyrics bouncing off the walls. Together, they shared laughter, stories, and emotions long trapped beneath layers of conflict. Jack felt exhilaration course through him, a synergy he had previously only aspired to create. In their moments of shared creativity, Jack experienced a profound shift in his identity. He no longer viewed himself merely as a professional sculptor of economic success. He was now a father, a musician, and an integral part of a collective dream. What had started as a fraught reconciliation blossomed into a genuine partnership. The next day, Jack faced a team meeting with invigorated energy. The nervous tension that typically coiled around his heart transformed into clear resolve as he prepared to navigate the inevitable pushback he anticipated. He shared his experiences with Emily and Sarah, the resilience emerging from their collaboration bolstering his spirit. "Folks," Jack began, the room quieting at the familiar start. "Yesterday sparked something. Our discussion ignited hope for the direction we can take. We may not stride into smooth waters entirely, but I believe in this team and the synergy we're capable of creating. This is about all of us, coming together to elevate each other." As he spoke, he spotted nods, timid yet encouraged faces. He felt emboldened, confronting objections head-on while making space for collaboration, a dance of vulnerability and authority that felt right. The ensuing discussions buzzed with innovative ideas, the friction of previous days slowly smoothing into a promising dialogue. They considered Jack's proposal of starting with a pilot program, exploring the path to measurable success while embracing positive disruption. He witnessed colleagues leaning in, intrigued, not just by his vision, but by the energy that sparkled between them. "Jack," Susan interjected again, holding a meaningful gaze, "count me in. Let us make this journey ours." That simple affirmation, spoken in trust, felt like a soft embrace. The tone of the meeting shifted dramatically, igniting a fire within him. The bonds he created in his home had inflected a change in his workplace. With each passing hour, the synergy within the team unfolded further, morphing hesitation into hope and ingenuity, morphing the landscape of their work culture right before his eyes. Weeks turned into months, and with each successful milestone, Jack saw the fruits of this collaborative endeavor sprout and flourish. They observed increased engagement across departments, resulting in innovative solutions that revitalized the workplace. Jack could finally step back and appreciate not just his professional achievements, but his personal transformation as well. Jack had not only mended the rifts within his family, but also embraced a new role as a leader, one defined not by authority alone, but forged through collective understanding. The reflection in the glass of his office revealed a man now intertwined with both personal and professional aspirations. "We've done it, Dad," Emily said one afternoon, grinning as she handed him a freshly polished demo of their joint project, a song capturing their renewed spirit. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" His heart swelled with pride as he listened to the melody weaving through their stories. It resonated deeply, a harmonious testament to the profound connections they had rebuilt. "Absolutely," Jack affirmed, the satisfaction palpable. He had conquered not only doubts, but also fears that had once held him captive. He realized that facing the challenges ahead, whether in the office or at home, would bring about growth not just for him, but for everyone involved. In that moment of reflection, Jack understood the ethos of his transformation. It was authentic, collaborative, and empowered. After years of striving for success in isolation, he finally acknowledged the richness of relationships as the backbone of victory. As he stepped onto that stage, ready to share their journey with others during an upcoming company summit, he felt profoundly confident, rooted in the truth of his own development, a truth he would carry into every aspect of his life. This was not merely a resolution, but an embrace of continuous growth. He had emerged, and in that emergence, he had found a path not solely defined by personal achievements, but one led by genuine, interconnected relationships. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.